everyone, this is your host Bryan, and welcome to episode 8. Today's topic, religion, politics, and more. Our plan is slowly lose all of our listeners by the end of this podcast. Find about all that and more on this week's episode of the Pause Button Podcast.
Yeah, we made it.
It's December in the future because we're still in November right now, but it'll come out in December.
Yeah. Another week I've gotten by without any at all.
Every week's
it's a challenge.
Every week's a victory, Pat.
Yeah,
you just keep going. You just keep going.
If we can call it a victory, my suffering.
Oh God.
You know, nothing like it's the holiday season, and nothing gets you more happy than some suicide jokes. You know, just gets you real in the mood for being grateful for all that you have this year, and looking back on your life and realizing that none of it's been that good.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, certainly.
Should we just end it there? Or?
Yeah, that's the whole episode. Let's go.
All right,
that's
so
the goal.
One thing we got to talk about before we get into what today's actual topic is going to be is the food of the holidays. Okay. I figured for the next each week of December, we're releasing an episode talking about the best whatever of the year. Before we get into that, we got to talk about different stuff that goes with the holidays. And today, I thought we should talk about the food, some Christmas food, Thanksgiving food, all the candy, the meals, the beers that you like.
Awesome. So what's your favorite?
Of what? That was
food.
Food?
Yeah.
You know, my mom makes this amazing thing that's like pineapples with you know the
you
rolls.
Like pineapples?
Hold on.
That's
let me paint this picture for you. It's a beautiful tapestry. So, you know the rolls that Pillsbury has, where it's like really flaky and there's like little. It's very.
A crescent roll?
No, it's not a crescent roll. It's still a bun, but it's very easy to break apart.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's that with pineapples, and it's just this is, I think it's technically a casserole, but it's so goddamn good.
She just puts pineapples inside those rolls?
No, I don't know what she does. It's magic. It's just a magic thing.
Well, what does it taste like though? Like,
this thing is spongy. All right, it's the texture of a sponge, but it's so delicious.
Not get into you in textures with food.
That's why I'm saying, like, I still like it.
Actually, like a weird textured food.
Yeah, I fucking love this stuff.
This
it's so
sound
good.
Anything like you?
It's come over to my house for Christmas. You're gonna have this stuff, and you'll be like, wow. Ryan was right. This is the greatest food ever invented.
Save some for me. I mean, I'll try it, but honestly, it sounds like I wouldn't like it.
I'm doing a terrible job explaining it. Terrible job.
Spongy pineapple, no thanks.
Yeah.
What about you guys?
I really like. So my aunt always makes this dessert called kolachkis. Tom knows, he's Polish. But it's actually funny because my aunt, who's on the Italian side of the family, makes the kolachkis, and she does it really well. They're amazing. But the only problem with it is, like, she knows that I like them. So ever since I've been, like, little and I just was stuffing my face with them, and now when I'm, like, trying to be more healthy, she'll bring them in, like, a huge basket. Just, like, hundreds, probably, you know?
That's what the holidays are for,
and
man.
She's just like, here, Joe, like, I made all these for you. And I'm like, all these? Like, for me? Like, it's too much. But they're really good. So, have you ever had one?
I don't like them.
What a surprise.
It's jelly inside of... It's a perfectly good pastry stuffed with this disgusting jelly stuff. The pastry part's good. I like that.
Jelly is good, Brian.
It's not, though.
It's
Do you like
good.
jelly donuts?
Why? No. No one actually likes jelly donuts.
Oh,
yes,
God.
yes. Most people, maybe.
Why?
Freak.
Why? There's just nothing... We're not here to talk about donuts. We're not here. We're talking about the holidays. It's supposed to be happy.
You keep it up, I'll start eating Funyuns into a microphone, man.
I mean, we could. So okay, what about candy? What's the best like holiday
You're just
candy?
not gonna ask Pat and Devontae what their favorite.
I don't
foods
care
are?
about their favorite foods. Clearly, that conversation wasn't working.
All right. Well, Like Bryan said, let's switch over to candy. So mine actually wouldn't be a candy, but I guess I'll go to a dessert. They're basically the same thing.
Oh yeah.
Mine would probably be snickerdoodle cookies.
Oh
Yeah, usually, only eating around the holidays, which I don't know why, because I would eat them year round if I could. But yeah, those probably my favorite.
That's a real good taste.
They have such a nice name too.
Snickerdoodle.
Mm-hmm.
You had a dog named Snickerdoodle. Pat?
To be entirely honest, cinnamon rolls. I love cinnamon rolls
yeah.
for Christmas.
Okay.
Yeah, we cook Christmas morning.
Every year growing up, my mom would make cinnamon rolls Christmas morning, and that would be our breakfast, and it was delicious.
Oh, it's
That's
good.
so awesome. So, like, okay, are you up already when she's making them, or do you wake up to the smell of cinnamon rolls?
She pre-makes everything, but doesn't bake them yet.
Okay.
So the next morning we would get up, we'd open our Christmas presents, and then she'd have them in the oven while we were opening the presents. So we'd kind of the smell would build up in the house as we are distracted, luckily, by our new gifts.
Hold up, is this homemade?
Absolutely.
Can I come over for Christmas this year?
No, stay away.
Back up my fucking cinnamon rolls.
How are we doing? Okay, so you guys ready to talk about the topic of the?
Yes, indeed.
Okay, so today we're gonna be talking. This is the first episode of its kind. We're gonna have 4 episodes, one for each week of December. Today we're gonna be talking about the best TV shows. First, we'll talk about the best TV shows of the year, 2019, and then we'll start going into smaller topics for the decade in general, and we'll kind of start fighting about who the best actor or actress was, or the best theme song, and all that stuff. So
why fight when we could just hug it out and hold hands?
Because that's not what the holidays are for.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, holidays for bringing up all your differing opinions and just fighting it out, and then at the end we all cry and hold hands, but we have to get through the fighting part first.
Especially Thanksgiving.
Dude.
I always after Thanksgiving, you always see the plethora of those videos come out where it's just people ruined,
Yeah,
family's Thanksgiving.
That's why I said we're gonna
Someone
talk
just picks up the turkey and slams it on the ground.
Yeah.
That's why I said we're gonna talk about religion and politics. We gotta start that traditional family fight at the dinner table. All right, so best TV shows of the year. What do you guys got?
So, my best shows of the year are Chernobyl, great miniseries on HBO about real historical events. It is a scary series. It's a drama series, a historical drama, but it almost works as a horror as well.
Really?
As there's this just constant threat of radiation and slow, horrible death. It's really, really interesting, brilliantly acted. Absolute recommendation. My second one, on a totally different spectrum of television, is Attack on Titan,
Fair.
which had an incredibly strong second half to its third season, which some people argue is kind of like a season 4 because it was normally anime seasons are 12 episodes, and this one was also 12 episodes by itself. But it was the best Attack on Titan had ever been, and it was the best anime of the year, in my opinion. And my final choice for shows of the year is The Good Place, which is coming to a close for its final season. I've really enjoyed the whole thing. I actually don't think it's as strong as its previous seasons, but I still think it's really good. And while it's not as totally laugh out loud funny, the message it has it's really touching in a lot of ways. And I won't spoil it for anybody because I know some people at this table watch The Good Place or are planning to watch it and have not caught up. So
that show is one of the most itself shows I know. It's so The Good Place in every way possible.
Yeah,
it never loses its message.
It really has a very distinct feel, and I love all the actors and actresses that they put on it.
Ted Danson's amazing.
Yeah, it's cool to see him back on TV doing stuff.
It's an iconic look with that bow tie and everything. I love it.
Yeah, and I've really wanted to watch Chernobyl. Especially after hearing Pat talk it up all the time. It sounds like such a cool show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I also want to give a shout out to obviously Kristen Bell and Ted Danson get a lot of the most attention on The Good Place, but the supporting cast of Jamila Jamil, Darcy Carden, William Jackson Harper, and Manny Jacinto, the actor who plays Jason on the show, are all really great.
Yeah, I love the guy who plays Jason.
Oh, and even Mark Evan Jackson, who is this guy from The Bad Place, and he tends to play super serious characters on a lot of shows like Brooklyn Nine-Nine and Parks and Recreation.
Oh, he's the lawyer, right?
Yeah,
the flat hair.
He's great too.
He's one of those guys who always shows up in like a show or a movie or something just for like a little bit, and you always recognize him. You're like, I know that guy.
He plays almost the same version of himself, which is slightly different. He's a
great character actor, though. Just like I feel like he really nails that deadpan humor.
Oh yeah.
Hey, he falls into like the same category for me as that guy from the Farmers Insurance commercials. Kind of, except I think that other guy is much more famous.
Oh, you're talking about J.K. Simmons.
I don't
know.
No.
That's, I don't think.
I don't know his name.
The bald dude?
You're talking about the black guy, right? Not.
No.
The bald dude.
So
J.K.
Simmons.
Yeah, he's talking about J.K. Simmons.
Am I thinking of State Farm then?
I think you might be thinking of Allstate.
Allstate. I'm thinking of
Allstate.
Definitely.
No.
Definitely not.
No, it's not.
Edit that.
No. I don't know. We can cut that if we need to. I thought it was him. I don't know. Anyway, I'll kill. Pat, looks like I'm killing myself after this, not you. Through the magic of editing.
So, are we going around the table and doing? Are we going around the table and doing everyone's best show?
Joey, let's do your top 3.
Okay, top 3. So my favorite show of 2019, I'm gonna go with Our Planet. It was a Netflix show that's actually, if you've ever seen like Planet Earth, Planet Earth 2, Blue Planet,
it's
very similar.
Nice.
Pretty much in the same vein, and it was done by a lot of the same people. Netflix got signed on to it. But the difference is why I chose this one is because on Our Planet they talk about more of the human impact that has happened on nature versus other documentary series where that just kind of give you a lot of the cool shots and stuff and make everything seem very peaceful. And it kind of like gives people the wrong idea. Like, although that is beautiful, it's not going to be there for a lot longer if things keep going the way it is, you know? And this kind of reminds me, like we were talking about the koalas before this episode started, how they're going to go extinct probably.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really cool. And it actually has some really cool people on it. So they have David Attenborough narrating again.
Ooh, sticking with his calling in life.
You just gotta love his voice. And I guess for Spain they had Penelope Cruz, and for Latin America they had Selma Hayek narrating it. So
wow, that's cool.
Yeah. And then Bryan, you might like this. The guy who did the soundtrack is Stephen Price. So he like composed all this stuff for that. What he's more well known for is doing the music for the movie Gravity with Sandra Bullock. And he also did the music for A Baby Driver. I think you really like that movie, right?
Dude, yeah.
Yeah. So they get some pretty cool people to work on this stuff, and I just love stuff like that. So that's why I chose that as my favorite. The next couple that I've got is Sex Education on Netflix.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't know you guys watched it.
Yeah, I saw that.
I know Tom has seen it. We've talked about it a few times, but that's kind of like a cool show that's really hilarious and like very heartwarming in the same way, kind of like how you mentioned The Good Place is. So I like that show a lot. And then Mindhunter season 2 was a really good show.
Oh man,
a lot of people talk about Mindhunter.
Yeah.
A
lot of people.
I loved the first season, and the second season just turned up the dial like that extra little bit, and it actually brought to attention some stuff that I'm not sure if a lot of people know about, like happened back in, I think it was probably the 70s with a lot of murders and stuff.
Yeah.
And just how crazy it is that certain governments could ignore that, you know?
What a creepy show. And like such a great way.
Oh my God.
It's just unsettling to like watch these like serious characters go in and have to deal with these horrible, horrible murders.
Yeah. And it's crazy that it's all based off of real stuff. Like these two guys were actually doing all this profiling work. And, you know, I mean, if you like Criminal Minds, these are the two guys who came up with those profiling methods basically, or started that work. So yeah, it's very really cool.
Is that Netflix?
Yeah, that's Netflix.
I gotta see that still.
I think all the things I chose were from Netflix.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that.
So definitely the millennial view, I guess.
All right, guess I'm up. All right, so one of the best TV shows I think of 2019 2 out of 3 are going to be anime for me because I don't watch standard TV most of the time. But the one I would have to say would be Demon Slayer for 2019.
That's a good one.
So if most of you don't know what Demon Slayer is, it follows his main character. His name is Tanjiro. And basically he lives with his family. He comes back. He goes out to do a job because he's like the oldest son at the time. Goes out to do a job, and as he's coming back, he realizes his family has been murdered by a demon. And in this world, demons are kind of like, they don't coexist with humans per se. But they're like, the creatures that to stay away from. They're in the shadows. But he comes back and finds that his family's been killed by a demon. He kind of loses it for a little bit, and then finds out that his sister is still alive. But the twist of this is that his sister becomes a demon and tries to attack him. And then, power of anime, he calms her down when she realizes, that's her brother. Whole story basically is he's trying to figure out how to turn her back into human. There's a big bad demon guy. I don't want to spoil too much about it. He looks like Michael Jackson, but that's cool.
What's Smooth Criminal, the white suit and everything.
Yeah, Smooth Criminal Michael Jackson.
Does he do the lean?
I don't think so.
He's got to do the lean, man.
Maybe. Well, but yeah, I won't go too much spoilers for it. I would definitely recommend that one. That'll probably be my number 1 for 2019.
Okay.
Number 2 actually will be The Haunting of Hill House on Netflix.
Oh, a lot of people talk about that one.
This one, it's kind of hard to describe it more so than there's a family, their house needs repairs, they move into the Hill House, and they have to stay in this house for a long period of time because their house hasn't been repaired yet, and the house turns out to be haunted. A whole bunch of stuff supernatural goes down. It's real spooky, and it results in a loss of one of the family members. Won't spoil it, but one of them ends up dying. Then they do a time skip 25 years later to show how the family's dealing with it. They go back to the Hell House for some reason.
Yeah. It's a horror movie,
Yeah, and it's really cool if you're really into supernatural, scary. I wouldn't say it's very scary, because I don't find supernatural stuff really spooky. But there is a lot of background things that you don't notice until you watch it a second time, which I think is really cool.
Oh wait, in this scene, they don't even talk about the ghost that's just looking at him.
Right, but it might be in the mirror or in this corner that's really dark.
Nope.
It's really cool. And I
don't like that.
The filmography, I think that's how you say that word. It's very good for that series.
Just a quick question. So, as far as comparing that maybe to something like American Horror Story, would you say it's scarier or freakier?
I would say it's definitely scarier because American Horror Story started off, I think, pretty scary, and then they lead towards unsettling type series. When you can watch it, you're oh, that's a little uncomfortable compared to the first season. When we're in this haunted house when there's more jump scares and everything like that.
The 2 experiences I have with that are I watched the first 2 or 3 episodes of them killing people in the basement or whatever with Quicksilver actor and all that,
right.
And then hearing about the bearded lady singing "Life on Mars," and I was all right, that show took a little turn there.
Yeah, so every season of that show is different, but I would say this one's definitely more spooky because they do more of the horror type music when it's the unsettling creaking and I guess the high tones that's in most movies to make you okay, what's gonna happen, and then nothing happens. But they're oh, then you let your guard down and then something actually happens. So I would definitely say it's more scary.
Okay.
And then the last one of mine would be another anime. It'd be The Promised Neverland.
Oh, I haven't heard of that one.
That was a good one.
Yeah, so actually Pat, the one that told me about this, because I didn't know it came out on Crunchyroll at the time. Mm-hmm. But this one follows a little 11-year-old girl named Emma. At first, when I first watched the first episode, or at least the first 20 minutes of it, I was what did Pat have me watch? Because it seemed like it was it was an orphanage that this little girl lives in, and it takes place in I think year 2045 or something like that in the future. So I thought it was just gonna be a slice of life. Oh, this following this girl and her friends in an orphanage. Basically living day-to-day lives, but
does it turn out that living in an orphanage isn't a good time?
It turns out it isn't a good time. I don't want to spoil it because that's how I got hooked on it based off the first episode. Mm-hmm. But definitely watch it because it's hard to talk about this one because if I give away the twist that they have at the first episode, it kind of ruins the impact.
What is this an action? Is it a drama? Is it a mix of both?
Drama, definitely.
Yeah, definitely a drama.
Not heavy action.
Okay.
but it's definitely a drama. It's definitely like a
pretty grounded.
I would say like a high-paced drama.
Yeah.
And it's not like super powered, like
Some
more...
mystery elements
Okay.
in there, suspense.
Cool.
Yeah, but that'd be my last one. Definitely check out those 3 if you're interested.
All right, cool. So I, as usual, had too much to fit on a list, so I just have to start off with honorable mentions, if that's cool. Can I do that?
Just really fast.
Talk
about
that. All right. Not enough people talk about the show Patriot Act. It's like Last Week Tonight, but different. And then Living with Yourself is a
Goes
good one.
forward
Paul
to
Rudd.
describe it.
I gave it 1 sentence. Those 2 shows are great, but I couldn't put them on my top 3. So, speaking of Last Week Tonight, that's my number 3 show for the year. He talked about so many different topics. John Oliver, the host, and all that. He had what I think is his best episode yet. Did you guys see the Cheeton episode about the mascots for the Japanese towns?
Yes, I did.
No.
You have to see this. This is the one of I cry from laughter every time. It's hilarious. It's these guys in like mascot outfits and the hijinks they get into. Like this guy's like causing trouble in the town and all that, and has these like kind of violent YouTube videos, but it's more of like just like a cartoon violence kind of thing. But it's I can't praise it enough. He talked about all like the big stuff that happened this year, and then a bunch of other random stuff you would never think about. So highly recommend that. My number 2 show for the year, I thought somebody else would have picked this, is The Boys from Amazon.
Never watched it.
It was a good show. I enjoyed it.
I haven't watched it yet.
So it's another superhero show. I know some people have like superhero fatigue or whatever and all that. And yeah, it's gritty and like real life based, but it just feels slightly different. It's got a different feel to it from anything else that I've seen before. The characters are really driving the story in such an enjoyable way. There's only like 8 episodes in the first season, but I got hooked.
Yeah, The Boys would have been probably my number 4 or 5. It definitely would have been an honorable mention for me.
I've heard people talk about it a ton. So
I was talking with one of my friends about the actors in the show, and it's like they definitely got like a bargain bin or like B-list Chris Pine and what's his face Jesse Eisenberg for it, where these guys look just like him, but they're not them. But
like Dollar Store Jeremy Renner.
Dollar Store Jeremy Renner, yeah.
Are you insulting Carl Urban right now?
Dude, Carl Urban has nothing to do with Carl. I was talking about the guy who plays Homelander and the guy who plays the main character's name.
Oh, okay, I see that. Yeah, that I can see that.
Yeah, Homelander is straight up Chris Pine, but it's not.
I thought you were calling Carl Urban
no,
Dollar
dude.
Store Chris Pine. And I was like, that's bullshit.
Carl Urban's great in that show. He's so good. So the Boys is my second one, and the number 1 would be Bojack Horseman. It came out with the first half of its last season this year, and it's the way it's handling the emotional moments and the humor. It's some of the best stuff they've ever done. And you know, if you've been watching the show since the first season, it's just so cool to see this character go towards the end of the story and everything. And it feels like it's going towards a perfect wrap up for the show, given how it's, you know, not like sunshine and rainbows the whole time, but I feel like it's still gonna have I don't know. But I couldn't praise that show enough. I love Bojack, so that's
Bojack's
number
a good
1.
show.
Yeah, I could not include Game of Thrones in my top 3 because we all know what happened there. So
refer to episode 2.
Yep.
So do we want to go to our best shows of the decade then?
Well, I figure we should save best shows for like the end, but yeah, little topics there. I'll start off with best actor and actress.
Okay. So for me personally, my so this is gonna be one that I think not all of us feel a little more
hot take. Let's go.
It's a little more uncomfortable with. No, I'm not saying I have a hot take. I think this topic is gonna be one that not all of us are fully sure of our choices for.
Okay.
My best actor, Bryan Cranston.
Yeah.
For Breaking Bad.
That's fair.
Obviously, Breaking Bad started off not in this decade, but we're counting it anyway because it ended. Most of the series is in this decade. I think the last 3 seasons.
Yeah.
Great show. Bryan Cranston kills it every chance he gets.
Destroys it.
For a guy who was known for comedy, going into
Malcolm in the Middle.
Drama series and just utterly nailing a guy with cancer who is on the rise as like a drug kingpin is just incredible. And his performances in the last couple seasons are particularly poignant.
I would love to watch the first episode of the series with the last episode and just compare the character and be like, oh my God.
I would not be entirely surprised to see if he appears in anyone else's best actor. My best actress, however, is going to be Lena Headey for her work in Game of Thrones.
Very nice.
She played Cersei Lannister, and unfortunately, she got almost nothing to do in her last couple seasons.
She looked out some windows.
But that being said, I thought she absolutely nailed her performance as she has these moments of pure weakness where she is so either being outplayed by other people in the game, or where she's being abused and used for being a woman. And you can see her desperation and how badly she wants to be a man so that she can be in power and be in control of her life for the first time. She also has these great moments of just pure maliciousness and evil. And you can understand how she became this way because of her issues with her gender identity and things like that.
Yeah, you don't look at it and be like, oh my God, why is she like that? You're like, oh no, I know why.
Her twin is Jaime Lannister, and she desperately... they were born together and they see each other as equals, yet he gets treated so much better by her father and is treated with so much more respect by the nation because she's a woman. And Lena Headey nails it every chance she gets.
Fair enough. Those are two great choices. Joey, what you got?
Brian, how about you go?
Yeah, let's have Brian go.
Devontae and I are currently trying to figure ours out.
All right, okay.
Just a clarification, this is the decade, yes?
The decade.
Right.
The decade.
Glad we're prepared. This
Flying
is a
by the
prepared
seat of your
podcast.
pants. That's how we do it here. So my number one was also Bryan Cranston as Walter White. So
yeah,
I'm not gonna talk about it because we talked about it enough. So I'll talk about my number two, which was Vincent D'Onofrio as Kingpin in Daredevil.
Oh, he's great.
Dude, I feel like it's okay to give a spoiler for the first season, but when he's smashing that guy's head in with a car door, I've never been so disgusted by a character and yet enthralled. Like, show me more of him.
He, more than I think a lot of other actors, truly embodied the physicality of the character. Like, he is... the character of Kingpin in the comics is this massive, cartoonishly big guy.
Right.
Yet he somehow almost totally captures that while being just like a normal large guy.
Yeah.
Right.
He commands the scene. Anytime he's in it, you're like, oh man, I'm just on edge. What is he going to do?
Right,
This guy's insane, but
Is
also
he gonna
methodical.
snap? Is he manipulating someone? And it's like the way he sort of adds like this bit of like, you can tell he's not entirely mentally there. Like, he's a smart guy, but he has some issues with his like social capabilities.
Yeah.
And
the way Vincent D'Onofrio just brings that forth, it's crazy enjoyable. And then for my best actress, I would have to say Emilia Clarke as Daenerys Targaryen. While she wasn't given the best stuff to work with, I feel like she acted the hell out of that last season. Even if her switch, her like switch that we talked about, like, where it's like, okay, I guess she's crazy now. She still portrayed it in such a way, and like everybody thinks about that scene where like the bells start ringing and all that. And it's just her with a CG, with a like a green, CGI screen and all that. But like the way she's portraying it makes you feel like she's actually looking at this town of people that she despises and like.
Yeah, Emilia Clarke's kind of a difficult one for me to decide on if I would ever agree with that. She has some amazing moments in the series, but she also has some weird moments like in season 2 where she's screaming, "Where are my dragons? Where are my dragons?
All right, okay.
I will burn you with fire and blood."
All right, yeah, there's some
just
stuff
like,
there.
I don't know about that one, Amelia. But
well, also,
she's good throughout the series overall, I would say.
Also, like that interview came out where she was like dealing with was it brain
she thought
aneurysm?
she was gonna like die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was gonna die.
My favorite quote from that
Said.
interview, favorite quote, is she's like, "I had the worst headache of my life. I thought I was actually going to die and I had to go on to do this interview. And I thought, well, if I'm going to die, I might as well do it on national TV." And she went on and did this fucking interview. Like, can you imagine that? So, like, she's, acting with what could possibly be the best role of her life. People are saying Last Christmas is a shit show, so I don't know where her career will go from here. But, like, she's doing some of the best work she'll ever do in her life while she's possibly dying from a brain aneurysm. Like, you got to respect that.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see where her career goes from here. It seems like she's pretty much ready to move on from the mainstream and into indie films.
Yeah.
And television series. So it'll be because her Terminator movie didn't do well.
Oh, Genesis, yeah.
And then Game of Thrones, well, fantastic most of the series. It ended on kind of a sour note. But overall, she has had so much spotlight because of Game of Thrones that I think she wants to see where these indie roles can take her. Hopefully she'll avoid doing just like romantic comedies. I want to see her in some interesting and weird roles.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
You guys ready?
Yeah, no, I can go. So my best actor of the decade would probably be Robert Downey Jr. Just because to me, he, Mr. Iron Man himself would be the one that I followed the most.
Well, we're just doing TV shows, aren't we?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was just TV shows.
Yeah.
I thought it was just actor in general.
Nope.
Oh, then I won't have any. I don't watch normal TV enough.
That's fair.
That's fair. I thought we were just doing actors.
Save that for the movie one, because I'm sure we're going to do best actors.
Oh, yeah, I'm going to...
Oh, yeah, I don't... So I'm going to stay out of this. So I don't watch TV enough to remember actors or actresses.
Fair enough.
All right, I guess I'll go then.
So he's like Robert Downey Jr.
I have Robert Downey Jr. So I'm going to go with Matthew McConaughey for his performance in True Detective in season 1.
Yeah.
I love that show in general. It's, if we talk about best shows of the decade, I'm probably going to bring it up. But he's just so good in that show because I can't tell half the time where he's coming from when I'm watching it. And I think in general, the show did a good job of like writing his character in a way that he's a confusing person and you're trying to figure him out. But he's just so good at being enigmatic to me. So that's why I'm going to go with him.
Absolutely.
As far as actresses, I'm going to go with Kristen Bell.
That sounded really confident, right?
Yeah. No, that's fair.
Yeah.
She brings a lot of depth to the character of Eleanor.
Yeah, I didn't, brought this up last minute, but yeah, I really love that show. And I think, like Pat said, she does bring a lot of depth. She brings a lot of heartfelt moments.
And she really nails her comedic moments as well.
Oh, yeah. Oh, she's funny. Even in interviews when I watch her or listen to her on a podcast or something like that, she's such a funny person in general, and I think without trying to be sometimes.
It's really interesting. You can see how talented she is as an actor when you take the character of Eleanor from The Good Place and juxtapose that with her as Veronica Mars in the show Veronica Mars.
I didn't know she was Veronica Mars.
Yeah. Totally different types of characters.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, that's a good choice. I feel like this one we can go over pretty quickly, but best theme song of the year.
For me, of the year or just...
Oh, sorry,
it doesn't
decade,
matter.
for the decade.
It doesn't really matter. Bojack Horseman for me has a great opening theme and a great ending theme.
Yeah.
The opening theme is totally instrumental and works mostly perfectly with the backdrop of the show, the introduction to the show where it zooms in on his face, but then the background changes. The
weirdness of the world happening to him.
You can see how he's sort of like run through life, and the music fits perfectly with it. Whereas the ending theme focuses, it has lyrics and it talks about just him and really focuses on his, like, he really is just this guy kind of who succeeded all these years ago, and now he's unsure of what his point is.
Yeah, by the band Group Love.
Oh, yeah. And honestly,
really?
Just a damn good song.
Yeah.
So is that from a song that Group Love
No,
wrote?
they wrote
or
it
they
for
wrote
the
it
show.
for that? Okay.
Correct, yeah.
Cool.
Wow.
Yeah. What about you guys? Good
So
themes.
does it have to be an original song?
No. I mean, dude, like when
Um,
Chuck used like a short skirt, long jacket, like that was great. Yeah.
So I'm going to go with the opening theme for Luther.
What song was it?
It's called, let's see, Massive Attack by Paradise Circus. Or I
Never
can't
heard
tell
of
if
it.
those are switched because I've never really looked up the actual song.
Yeah.
But the theme song is so good, and I love that show too. But it really like sets the tone going in that it's like kind of creepy, that it's like this slow paced thing, but it's just really good. I love that opening. It just sets the tone so well.
Idris Elba, right?
Yeah. Love that guy.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Devontae, you got one?
Yeah, so mine actually is going to be anime opening. It is, again, based off the Demon Slayer anime I was talking about earlier. It's Grunge by Lisa.
Okay.
She actually, if you know who she is, she did the intro to the first season of Sword Art Online too. And this song is so popular that the lead singer of Panic at the Disco has a video of him singing it.
Really?
Yes.
Nice.
So you can actually see him singing this song. It's really good. Her voice is amazing. And I think it sets the tone for the anime because of like the traditional sounds that they have in it and the background too, along with her singing to it is really great.
Devontae, speaking of anime openings, I'd like to give you a recommendation to watch the anime opening for the anime Beastars.
Beastars?
Yeah, check it out. It might make you interested in the anime or at the very least the manga, because the manga is fantastic as well.
See,
check
when
it out.
you were saying anime, I thought you were going to go with Attack on Titan. That the first season, man, had a real good opening.
That had a good opening.
I
yeah,
think it's
certainly.
really good, but I'm not gonna say it's a bad song, but when it doesn't connect to me as much as this song.
It could have been any anime's
right,
opening.
right. Yeah,
Okay.
I don't think it connects to the series as much.
Okay, so that kind of ties in with mine a little bit. Game of Thrones theme song is just so tied to that show.
That's iconic now.
Yeah, nothing compares to just sitting down on a Sunday night when that show was coming out, and you just heard that, and you got all amped up, ready to go. And
who's the composer? Say it.
Ramin Janowski or something like that.
Try to.
It's something like
sure.
that.
Yeah, there.
His initials are RD. I remember that. But man, it's so catchy. It's so catchy. I love that one. So, we could move on to. Let's see. Do you guys want to talk about the best new show that came out this decade? See which one's coming out. As time goes on. Which one?
Best new show.
Yeah.
You didn't tell us we had to prepare that.
Hey, flying by the seam of our pants. I don't know. So
What's a decade?
we'll skip that one. We'll skip that one then. How about best comedy? Best comedy.
Okay.
What made you laugh?
Parks and Rec easily.
Yeah,
I
same here.
agree. That'd be my two.
Yeah. Joey?
I'm probably gonna go with New Girl.
Wow.
Wow. Nice.
Wow.
I can respect it. I can respect it. You're
can't.
different.
I
can't.
always get shit on for liking that show, so I'm like,
New
so
Girl has
timid
some
when I-
like really mediocre episodes in there,
Uh-huh.
but it has some great moments, and I really, really like the supporting cast in that.
Yeah, sometimes I can get a little bit frustrated with it, or I could see how people would, because it feels sometimes like they're trying just a little too hard to be like extra weird for a comedic effect.
Yeah.
But I really like that show in
Yeah.
general. I think the majority of it is better than it's bad. So
Yeah, Parks and Rec for me it stands out for having such a brilliant like it has a large cast, but like all of them have such distinct personalities that are incredibly fleshed out. The actors nail their performances, and they all just flow off each other really well. Like you could tell this cast probably got along really well outside of things, and when they got in character, it was just as easy for them to slip into bouncing off each other and getting along and acting like they're best friends and almost family to each other.
Yeah.
And also, John Ralphio is just one of my favorite random supporting characters. I love him so much.
it would probably be really fun to watch bloopers from that show, because you could probably get a glimpse of that.
Did you ever see the comeback story?
Oh,
Yeah.
That's
Okay, so I
one
was
of my
gonna bring
favorite
that
ones.
up. Yeah.
That's so good. Yeah, the actors in that show they just knew what they were doing, man.
And so many iconic roles. I mean, you have Ron Swanson coming out of there, Andy Dwyer, Leslie Knope.
Yeah.
Like those three, like really
Andy
stick
Dwyer,
out to me.
man. It's so good.
Hell, even April was essentially written to just be Aubrey Plaza in real life.
It just plays herself.
Weird, quiet in the corner, random comments. Like
The one cool thing that like I have a kind of a connection to with Parks and Rec is that Nick Offerman went to U of I. So I went to the same college as him, and he came back and he did the graduation speech for Bryan and I's brother and sister when they graduated.
Nice.
Yeah. Seems like a cool guy.
Mm-hmm.
All right. What about action? Best action show of the year or decade? Keep saying that.
For me, I'm gonna hit live action. I'm gonna say Game of Thrones.
Fair enough.
Animation, I would probably go Attack on Titan.
Okay.
But overall, I'm gonna say Game of Thrones. I love its massive war set pieces with fantasy elements like these dragons. Just absolutely brutal moments. And obviously, we're not just ranking the action here. The story is really like it has some brilliant twists along the way. It makes you feel like no character is ever safe. Some actors really pull out brilliant performances and make you care about them, despite the fact that you don't want to care about anybody because you're not certain if they'll survive. Overall, the show ended on kind of a sour note. The last 2 seasons didn't quite land, but if they had, I think it would have been easily my show of the decade. Unfortunately, with that stumble at the end, it didn't quite manage, but love the show.
So good. So good. What about you guys?
So yeah, again, mine are gonna be animes. My probably best action of the decade will probably go to Tokyo Ghoul, like season 1.
Okay.
I think it impacted me the most because it was something I never really thought of. Between like, if you don't know, Tokyo Ghoul is basically kid named Mcconaughey. Ghouls and humans kind of coexist with each other, except ghouls are seen as bad because of the government, and they only feed on humans. So Mcconaughey is a human, becomes a ghoul with some way, which I won't spoil, and then throughout the season, he's trying to get the government and the ghouls to basically coexist with each other and not, fight all the time. And you follow him, and I think the fight scenes are cool because they have these things called cognates, which is like they transfer their energy into extensions of their bodies, basically. Like some people will have like wings that can shoot like, needles that are like as sharp as to like pierce through bodies, or some people have like giant fists. And I think it was really cool. And then the other one, again, would be Demon Slayer. I think the action in that and the animation itself brings up the action. Yeah. Like, it's probably, of like all the animes I've ever seen, is probably one of the best animated fights I've ever seen in that series. Between the colors, how they use slow motion in the animation, it really makes you feel like, oh, like I don't know what's gonna happen, and then you feel satisfied with the fight more than like, oh, the fight just happened.
Yeah, cool.
So I haven't seen all of it, so I might get a little bit of shit for this because I've only seen a few episodes. But I'm gonna go with Westworld because I want to watch it so bad. I've just never. I always get into other stuff like before, so I watch the episodes very sporadically. But that show is so easy to pull you in, and the action scenes are. I really like it. I mean, they punctuate everything in the show.
That show is definitely an experience. Yes. I feel like season 2 stumbles a little bit. I don't know if you've made it to season 2 yet. But it does have a lot of great moments. I think my favorite episode of the series is in season 2.
Yeah.
And I'm really looking forward to season 3 where they're adding Aaron Paul to the cast.
Oh, Never
really?
wrong to add Aaron Paul.
Nice.
Never wrong to add Aaron Paul. For me, I had one, and then Pat changed my mind. So Game of Thrones is my number one. I forgot how good that action is. So I'll talk about my number 2 then. Don't give me that look. You changed my mind. You won me over.
I'm not giving you a look. I was giving you a victory smile of that's right.
I wish we had video episodes. You could see the look he was giving me. So number 2 would be Daredevil. And all I have to say is that hallway scene. Or the second hallway scene. Either of them are both perfectly
there's
choreographed.
Also the third hallway scene where it goes on for 10 minutes straight without cutting.
That's the prison one, right?
Yeah.
Dude, the choreography is mind-blowing in this show.
It's so real. It's so like, obviously, there are some people who have come out and be like, he's taking a lot of hits to the head and standing up again.
It's a TV show, all right? Let's have some fun here.
But it is so, every punch lands with utter brutality, and like,
you feel it.
You feel it for the character that's throwing the punch. Like, he's exhausted and he has to keep punching.
Anytime he wraps up his hands, man, you're like, let's go. Let's just see where this is going. It's so good. I love the action in that. Way better than the action he had in Iron Fist, which he's supposed to be the best martial arts guy in the world, but oof. Oof. Thank God Netflix
did you know he's from Kunlun and he's the immortal Iron Fist?
He's sworn enemy of the hand. All right. Best drama. Pat, can I guess your best drama?
Yeah, it's going to be easy.
Is it Breaking Bad?
No.
No?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. What else could it be? Like, that's mine too.
Anyone else choose Breaking Bad?
No.
You're wrong. You're just wrong.
It was a tie between this and another TV show.
Okay. So
fair.
So Pat, what's the best way to sum up the drama in Breaking Bad?
Aaron Paul and Bryan Cranston just killing it every chance they get. I mean, the constant question of will Walter White be corrupted, and will he be found out for what happened? Will he survive the series? Will Jesse survive the series? Will Jesse be able to break away and find his way without Walt?
Find out in El Camino, the Netflix.
And will Hank manage to figure out what's going on with Walt? All of it just piling up as everything just gets worse and worse and goes more and more out of control as each season goes on. Is just
and Gus.
Incredible. And Gus Fring and Mike and
Mike, so good. Man.
It's so good. Todd, the creepy guy.
Todd, yeah. Hector.
Hector.
All right, what do you guys got over there?
Okay. So again, mine would have been a tie between Breaking Bad and I have a kind of a soft spot for this one, but it's the show called The Get Down on Netflix.
Nice.
This one is basically about it takes place in 1970s. But it's kind of like a flashback type thing when it starts off the episode in 1996 for a rapper called MC Brooks. He's basically rapping about his life from the 70s on.
Wow.
And he's basically describing how the 70s was the start of hip hop and disco at the same time.
Yeah.
And disco was really, disco was already kind of getting big, and people were like, well, why are you, people start scratching the turntable. Now it's like really frowned upon at the disco age, because at disco, you just put on the record and you let it play. But MC Brooks was one of the ones that started with the scratching of the turntable to create hip hop, and they started rapping.
So this is like a dramatic telling of a real life thing.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, the character is made up, but
okay,
it's basically
characterize that movement.
Right. Yep. It characterized that movement, and it's really cool because it gives some insight to basically how it was disco versus hip hop, and then towards the end of the series, it was disco and hip hop together, and it just shows like the fight, the struggles. It gets gang affiliated at some point, between I don't know if you ever seen the Warriors movie.
Oh, yeah.
When it's like all these different
come out to play.
Yeah, all these different gangs come out, and try to fight. It was like, oh, there's the hip hop gangs, there's the disco gangs, and then it's all happy and stuff at the end. Unfortunately, it got canceled by Netflix.
Oof.
It did have part 1 and 2. At least in part 2, it was kind of rushed, but they finally got to use some sort of closure for the series. So I would still recommend it to watch. I think it's really good.
Okay, I haven't even heard of it, so that's awesome. I gotta look that up. Joey, what you got?
I'm gonna go with Black Mirror.
Oh wow!
I've watched a few episodes, and I think that it's really interesting. And I like the fact about this show that every episode is different. Because there's not a lot of shows that do stuff like that.
Vignettes, kind of.
Yeah, just like these little glimpses, short stories. And even if you do it, I think it's hard to do it well. And just the kind of, I guess, word of mouth that's around Black Mirror too makes it something that is such a big phenomenon for me, at least. Because everybody's always talking about oh, did you see this Black Mirror episode? Or they're always asking me questions like that if they're going to put it on or something like that.
I always heard a lot about San Juniper or whatever.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think that's one of the more popular ones. There was one, I don't know if it's the same one or not, but there was one where these people were visually... There were soldiers who were trying to kill these people that are roaches, basically, is what they say. And then there's a twist in the episode where it's kind of the government is behind a lot of stuff, and that's my favorite episode of Black Mirror.
Okay.
I like the twists and turns on that show.
Yeah. Okay. All right. The time has come to debate the best show of the past 10 years.
Are we actually debating, or are we just saying our top 3?
Oh, you could say it, and then I'm going to assault you if you don't pick the same one as me.
Sure,
so.
Okay. So my favorite shows of the past decade are Attack on Titan for its great action, great mystery, great characters, great horror. It really builds the show slowly over each season, where each season almost has a different focus on one of those genres. They even have political intrigue in the latest season, and they just nail everything that they do in that series. Also brilliant animation. Breaking Bad. I've talked about Breaking Bad several times, so I really don't feel like I need to say any more.
Are you doing this in order, or you got numbers?
No, there's no particular order.
Okay.
It's just my top 3.
Yeah, okay.
And Parks and Recreation.
Very cool.
It's probably my favorite sitcom of all time now. It's just so funny. I can rewatch that series. I at least once a week watch at least one episode of the show. So that just goes to show how much it means to me.
Always fresh.
Yep.
Over there, what you got?
All right, so mine is actually my number one all time of the decade. Actually, just a continuation of a show that started in 1999.
Whoa!
And mine would be Futurama. It's my favorite top show of all time. I didn't want to put it in the decade comedy because I kind of wanted to leave this for the end of my favorite show of all time. But it might be Futurama. Second one would probably be Fairy Tail, the anime. I like it a lot, and it gets a whole bunch of crap. The story-wise is not the best, but it always reminds me of Saturday morning cartoons.
Oh, okay.
It's just very lighthearted. Everything's not too serious, and I just can watch it all the time and be happy about it.
Nice.
And then, the third one, probably Parks and Rec. Between Futurama and Parks and Rec, I watch that series, I think, 3 or 4 times a year.
Dope.
I just gotta mention how I love how everyone's saying Parks and Rec and The Office has not been listed. It's so interesting that no one's saying that. The Office
Doesn't appeal to me in the same way.
I tried watching, I couldn't get into it.
Really?
See, I think I probably like The Office more than Parks and Rec.
Go.
Oh god.
Go.
Get him out of here.
Just go.
We're replacing you with Jim. Jim's gonna come on and replace you.
Although I'll admit that I think Parks and Rec has a much lighter tone.
Oh yeah, I mean, they're not ripping into each other; they're just having fun.
Yeah.
So Joey, what are your top 3?
My top 3 of the decade, I'm gonna go with True Detective being my number 1. I already mentioned it once, so I won't harp on it too much, but I just remember when I bought like the DVD for it, and every day when I like came home from work, I would like go straight to watching that. Like I had to find out what was happening next. And I tried to pace myself doing like 1 episode per day, but that went along like terribly. I couldn't do it. And when we were talking about action stuff earlier, True Detective has one of like the most stressful action scenes that I've ever watched. And I've told Tom about it, I think, a couple of times. It gives me legitimate anxiety. Wow. I cannot, like...
Okay.
Yeah.
I really
do you know what I'm talking about?
I unfortunately did not watch True Detective, but I've seen, I think, the scene you're talking about.
Yeah. It's just a lot. And then I'd probably go with Bob's Burgers.
Oh, yeah. Good choice.
Nice,
I absolutely love that. I was really torn between New Girl and that for best comedy.
Yeah.
But Bob's Burgers is so good, and I love the family dynamic that they have where pretty much Bob gets dismissed continually. And I think a lot of people can actually like relate to that because I feel like people don't feel like other people listen to him half the time.
I always love how Bob is a weirdo, but everyone else's family is so much weirder than him.
He seems like a straight man.
Yeah, he becomes the straight man just out of pure necessity.
Yeah. And then the next show I'm going to do is Portlandia. I don't know if you guys have ever watched that, but it's a sketch comedy show with Fred Armisen and Carrie Brownstein.
You know, I think in our very first episode, the 0.5 episode, we referred to you as the indie darling.
Oh,
filling that role, bringing up Portlandia.
But Portlandia is it's really, really funny. Comedically, it just really hits like a lot of current topics on the nose, I think, and it can be very relevant to even stuff that's going on now. I think even though the show is done now, though, but yeah, it's really good, and I think it says a lot to have a sketch comedy show that can uphold itself for a good amount of years.
Okay,
cool.
Great choices. I'll have to look Portlandia up too.
Yeah.
My top 3 have all been mentioned. Number 3 is Bojack Horseman. We talked quite about that. The fact that show can balance like having some of the most serious stuff I've seen on TV with the stupidest jokes about animals living in this world. Like when they go to the like diner and a cow just like squirts milk out of her boob and gives it to him. Like it's like that's so stupid. But then really the episode, it's like you're crying about him and his like drug addict. You're like, this is nuts. Number 2 is Parks and Rec. It's just the funniest show ever created. I love it. And then number 1, even though it was tainted, Game of Thrones is my number 1 of the decade. The excitement you would get of every Sunday when it would come back and just watching that story unfold. I read the book, so being able to see it start, it knew what was going to happen, and then once it got into a territory where I didn't know what was going to happen, and the action, the acting, it's just so good. I love that show, and it tapped into the nostalgia center in my brain, and it's never going to come out now. So regardless of what happened, it's still, I still love it. So there we go.
Yeah.
All right. Guess we should wrap it up.
Yeah. So I think we just hit the longest episode yet. So
probably.
Yeah.
So let's end it before Tom kills himself.
Yeah. Hey, we're under an hour. It's okay.
Bring it all back to suicide.
All right. Yeah. Full circle. So this was the best shows of the year and decade. Next week, you're going to hear us talk about the best video games of the year and decade. Fine by the theme of our parents, man. That's the theme. The next one's going to be video games. Tweet at us what you thought. If you forgot some shows, if you like, agree with us and all that. I know I'll be tweeting out my top 10 list for everything, so you can kind of see more of that if you're interested. But
where can they find our Twitter, Brian?
The Twitter is at pausebuttonpod. That's the Twitter. And then the Instagram, I believe, is at Pause Button Podcast.
They're both in the description. So
yeah, you can look there, share it with your friends, and we're weekly, baby. So we got a listener in Canada. We're international. So you're listening to the #1 newest podcast out there. It's the best thing ever created. So more to come next week. But Tom, what's our topic next week?
Next week we discuss how Robert Downey Jr. should do TV shows so that everyone can have more Downey in their life.
Very great. But until then,
now we're gonna hit pause.